Hello and welcome to another episode of the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name is Nathaniel and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Plenty to get into today. Some massive news around the league. Got a nice kind of sizable episode today. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Yeah, very excited. How are you? You all good?
I'm good. What a difference a week makes. Like we had the Stanley Cup finals to talk about, but that was kind of about it. Just sort of one set of games. Fast forward a week, and we've just got a litany of stuff to get through. I can't wait for some of the conversations we're going to be having.
Yeah.
But I think we'll get straight into it. We'll lead off for an absolutely massive trade. So the Seattle Kraken, right, I've traded for Maki Samoskevich from the Panthers. What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, as it led into what we believe was the kind of root cause. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, the precursor trade, Samoskevich going to the Kraken from the Panthers. I really like that move. I think Samoskevich is a really good young player, kind of one of the only really young players on that Florida team, really. And kind of found himself in a middle six kind of role. I think he has the talent and the ability to play higher in kind of than that. I think he can be like a top six guy. Going to Seattle where he'll have a more elevated role, somewhere that he can kind of use his skills a bit better within that lineup. But he goes to Seattle in exchange for the 25th overall pick in this year's draft and a conditional 2027 second round pick, and that being the highest of the two they have at present. I mean, obviously, we'll get through Samoskevich first. So you have any thoughts on the trade at all?
When this trade first went down, we didn't have the information for which we're about to drop on you in a moment. And I thought it was important to have this precursor because obviously the 25th overall pick for the Panthers was pivotal in their following move. But Samoskevich himself, he's a good young player on a good team like Florida. I think he had the opportunity to obviously consolidate a middle six career there. He was drafted in the first round a few years ago in around the 25th spot. So obviously I think the Panthers have just gained an extra pick from that, really.
Yeah.
In that scale of things. Now, we've piled on the Kraken a little bit for being a bit boring and they need to make some moves. So for me, it's a bit of a dampener. Samoskevich may fork out a top six role on the Kraken, but will he be as good of a player as a middle six forward on the Florida Panthers? I guess time will tell. I think it would be good for him to step up and create his own legacy rather than be sort of a water bottle carrier for lots of other people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I think it's a good opportunity for him. I think as well, and it's always that kind of tie up of what guys want. You know, do they want to have a lower role on a more competitive team, or do they want a higher role on a not as competitive team? Like you said, obviously time will tell with Samoskevich, and obviously, we'll see how it all kind of unfolds going into next season. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do on that Kraken roster. But yeah, I think, as far as Florida are concerned, I think they get a good return. They get more or less a matching pick back for, where they took him, as well as an extra second in the future. So I think a good bit of business from Florida there.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like, the Panthers have won that trade in just straight
Mm.
up, without any other context. I think the Kraken have been fleeced a little bit. But then again, you never know. You can't judge a trade the day it's made.
No.
You have to judge it sort of a few years down the line. So it's fine. I'm happy with that. Not that it
Right,
matters
let's
to me.
let's let's get to the meat and potatoes of this trade, Nathaniel.
Are you sure you don't want to deep dive Samoskevich a bit more?
I think I'm good. I think I'm all good. But yeah, let's move into the real reason this trade was made.
Obviously, no one knew about this really at the time, and I mean they only happened 24 hours apart, so I'm sure some background sources were knew this was sort of going on, but it's happened. Brady Tkachuk has joined his brother Matt in Florida. Now, Florida have had to give up a hell of a lot to get Brady Tkachuk. But yeah, the shithouse team have become even more shithouse.
Yeah, yeah, they have. I mean, I couldn't believe when I saw that news last night. Obviously, I know I first found out getting a text from yourself, so immediately went over to Twitter and was like, "Oh my God, what has happened here?" I mean, Brady Tkachuk playing the whole no trade conversations have happened. I don't know what you're on about. No idea. He's been playing his cards very, very close to his chest. And I'm amazed that this has come to fruition. To be honest, I think it's always one of those things that's been like kind of theorized. Oh, like wouldn't it be great if we could get both the Kachuk brothers on in Florida? Well, we're gonna see it now. Yeah, 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick as well. Which when you look at kind of that's roughly kind of what the return was for Quinn Hughes when he went to Minnesota, or kind of first round pick players. That kind of seems to be the market price. I'm not trying to say that Brady Tkachuk is as good as Quinn Hughes is. Obviously, they're massively different players. I personally think Hughes is the better all round player. But if you are wanting to sign a franchise, a franchise player, obviously he was a captain in Ottawa as well. Then that is the cost. So they have kind of pawned off a large amount of their draft capital in order to get him here. Obviously, two of those first round picks being the 9th overall pick and the 25th overall pick that they received from Seattle in this year's upcoming draft. So Ottawa will have the ability to to rebuild a little bit and kind of stock back the cupboards. But yeah, I think this is an unbelievable move.
Yeah, we had this conversation this season of Quinn Hughes. Where's he going to go? Is he going to join his brothers Jack and Luke at New Jersey? Obviously, that didn't happen. And then you could tell Brady's been a bit unhappy. I don't know whether unhappy is the right word, but I think there was some discourse there, definitely.
Mm.
So, whilst this hasn't completely come out of the blue, it obviously has taken quite a few people by surprise at just the fact that it's actually happened, rather
Mm.
than just wishcasters on social media saying, I want to be cool if brothers play together. The
Yeah,
fact is the Kachucks that are playing together is just nuts.
yeah.
Put them on the line with Stan Bennett, and you've got some nasty, nasty
That is going to be the
play.
hardest line to play in the entire league. They will just absolutely pummel you. Um, yeah, I think it's an absolutely.
It's gonna be great to watch.
It is
It's
going
a
to be
great
great.
fan, like neutral, I guess, perspective of it. I'm sure there's some teams in that division who are going to be quite angry that this has happened, but I say Tampa Bay, you've been at the behest of some nasty hits from Florida in their matchups. I think that's about to only get tougher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is the exact kind of move that I think puts Florida right back where we would kind of expect them to be next year. I don't think, to be fair, I don't think many people had many concerns that they probably were going to sort of get back there next year. Obviously, they missed Kachuk for large parts of the season. They missed Barkov for the entire season, and you now throw kind of Brady Kachuk into the mix there as well. And I think it's an absolute signal of intent from this team that they are going to, they are going to commit to being as competitive as possible. I think Kachuk has, I want to say, 3 or 4 more years left on his current deal. 26 years old. You would imagine that they want to keep him around there. I think the two of those will be, joined at the hip for the rest of their careers now. But yeah, I think massive move around the league, and this is the new NHL. It's so for years these kind of big franchise name guys just didn't get traded. But you're seeing obviously Quinn Hughes got moved last year. We've seen Tkachuk get moved now. You're seeing Dylan Larkin, could potentially be on the move. And I just think it's quite, it's quite exciting because of obviously like the rise in the cap, and obviously free agency isn't quite what it was. But what it does lead to as a result is, some of these blockbuster trades happening, and I think it's just it leads for very exciting fandom.
Because unless you're an Ottawa or a Vancouver fan, or just any Canadian fans in general, who've seen these American Olympic players moving across to American teams again. Obviously, we could probably talk about Florida and Tkachuk all day, but what about Ottawa? How do you feel about their end of the trade?
Well, I think they get a great return. I think, three first rounders and a second rounder, I think it gives them the flexibility to either, draft a bunch of young guys and kind of restock, like I said before, restock the prospect cupboards. Or if they want to make some moves, around the league elsewhere, you've heard names like Barzal, you've heard names like Kyrou, all guys that could be sort of potentially open to a trade this summer. Maybe they package all four of those picks and throw them Dallas's way for Jason Robertson. Who knows? So I think it gives them a lot
as
of.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It gives them flexibility to either, flip those picks and get someone great back, or make a few smaller moves. So I think certainly, obviously, with the draft in a few days' time, 4 days, I think we are out from the draft. I think Ottawa are going to be one of the big teams to watch, on the trade front. I certainly think that 25th overall pick could be in play. I think the additional first round pick could be in play, as well as that second. I think, with the 9th overall pick, I think they might well take someone, because you've got an opportunity to get an elite prospect in that sort of range. And it has made a bit of a change to my mock draft, which I know we'll be coming to later. But so yeah, stick around for that.
Yeah, it has messed me up a little bit as well. But hey, I think in terms of just taking out all the sentimental value and things like that, I do think Ottawa probably won this trade,
Hmm.
because Kachuk isn't the first line dominating scoring player, like sort of that massive superstar. You want him on your team, absolutely. But if it was, let's say, Tim Stützle or something like that, I think that might have more of a general impact. I think Brady's been out of Ottawa for a little bit of time anyway.
Yeah.
So for them, it's time to let loose. They've now got a plethora of picks and options and routes they can go down, and they can easily just, if they invest it smartly, they can easily come out on top of this. Meanwhile, Florida could still win the trade because the brothers are playing together. I think it's a good sentimental pick, and I do think it will have an impact on the ice. I think both sides are winners, really.
I was just about to say, yeah, I feel like it is quite rare that you get a trade where both teams are like, yeah, I'm really happy with that. I know we're very much in the business nowadays of who won the trade, who lost the trade, but I think there's definitely reasons for both teams having won it respectively. For me, it kind of depends on what Ottawa does with those picks. And if they do make picks in the draft, how those guys end up turning out, etc., or who they trade them for. So yeah, again, time will tell. On the value of those picks, depending on what they do with them. But yeah, it was massive story, and Yeah, I'm excited to see the Tkachuks playing together in Florida, but I am certainly nervous for any team that rocks up there.
Yeah. The final thought on it for me is the fact that Matthew and Brady combined salaries are equal to a Kirill Kaprizov. Um, which I didn't want Kaprizov to leave Minnesota, and I'm glad he signed a contract. But when you put it like that, I don't know, we got the Felinos, so that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, you got your own siblings.
um, anything more on that before we move on?
No, I think we'll move into the into the next bit. Yeah, say plenty of news to get to. So I could talk Kachuk all day, but yeah, we'll move into
There
the
will be
next
a
bit.
time where we deep dive the Florida Panthers,
Oh,
as
there
we will
certainly
every
will.
other team's off season. So we'll talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I think the next thing we should talk about is our favourite hockey vegetable. What do
I
you think?
I think I know where you're going with this. You are referring to Darren Raddysh, if I'm correct.
Oh yeah, Darren Raddysh, the top free agent potentially in this class, is no longer a free agent. He has been traded from Tampa to Toronto Maple Leafs for a fifth round pick, and then proceeds to sign an 8 year, $8.5 million contract in Toronto. Now, this happened a few days ago and was going to lead us off on this episode until Florida's still on the headlines again. So, what do you think for that move?
Um, Okay, first and foremost, the the cost to to get him. I mean, ultimately they gave up a fifth round pick in order to have the the negotiating rights more or less. I think it was pretty clear that Raddysh was going to test free agency. You want to throw a fifth round pick to ensure that you can get him over the line, absolutely fine. So no issues with that. I mean, a fifth round pick's a fifth round pick. It's a blind dart throw, really. Um, I think now I think we've had quite sort of contrasting opinions. I like the trade. I do. Darren Raddysh has come off I think a 70-point year. A career year for him. 30 years old. The $8.5 million cap hit, I have no issues with whatsoever. I think it's maybe a little bit much, but you would have been paying that for him as a free agent regardless. I'm not a massive fan of the 8 year deal. I think six would have been, I think six would have been kind of the optimum. But I just think paying him 8.5 million up until he's 38 years old, I'm not a huge fan of that per se, and I believe he has a full no move clause for those last 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
does, yeah.
So I mean,
So,
look, you have to make sacrifices in order to in order to get your guy, and I'm sure that Toronto probably weren't entirely keen over the length of that deal, but if it gets some Raddysh over the line, it gets some Raddysh. Now obviously the cap is going to be going up. What that $8.5 million will look like in a few years' time is probably different to how it looks now. But I think it's the difficult aspect of I don't think we still quite know what Darren Raddysh is. At this level, he's only really got like 3 full years of experience up in the NHL. He was sort of a career between guy, AHL guy. Um, he took full advantage of a year in which Tampa had an absolutely crocked defensive core. And, fair play to him. He put up an absolutely massive year. I suppose it's knowing, is Darren Raddysh the 70-point guy that he's shown this season, or is he the 30-point guy that, he was in previous years? Or is he in Toronto in a slightly higher role? Is he kind of somewhere in between there, which I think is probably the more sort of likely outcome?
yeah, it's just going to maybe be a bit of a boring answer here, but nothing is ever as extreme as we feel it is. In all professional I guess, North American sports where the free agency system sort of works like this. The top player on the market will always get an overinflated deal. And chances are they're probably not worth as much as the money that's offered. Like, but in that same respect, there are so many teams that have needs, and that one team who wins that race and is at the top of the pile will have to offer probably a slightly overinflated price in order to beat any other team. For me, this could have been worse for Toronto. Yep, the years are a bit rough and it might bite them in the butt later down the line. But Toronto are also forever in a win now mode.
Mm.
I think their fan base and the vitriol when they're not doing good means that they have to make these signings. He could have easily gone for 10 mil for 6 years, maybe, or whatever. And to have that security over that year meant he's managed to bring it down a little bit is probably a success. Is he worth 10 mil? Is he probably not even worth 8.5? Let's say if he comes out as a 60-point player, kind of solid defensively, I still think Toronto will likely be happy with that, judging by what their needs were, what the needs are, and the new direction that they're going in. So it's kind of none of this is surprising. I think it's kind of what was expected. I should be unhappy with it, but because I know how free agency goes, I'm kind of content with it.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. And obviously, you would imagine this is a trade that's been rubber stamped by a new head coach in Toronto, Nathaniel. They finally got their guy. It wasn't a guy who was on any sort of short lists that were in the sort of public knowledge. But yeah, there's a new head coach in Toronto.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it actually might be a sensible hire because Jim Hillier did a good job in LA, and what he did in LA was make LA like a not like a nothing team, but like just a solid professional, solid team that had no drama really.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong in that, but I think that if he brings that to Toronto, he'll either get eaten alive or he'll actually be able to instill a similar kind of mindset.
yeah. I don't. I mean, certainly in relation to what he did in LA, yeah, he did. He was fine. Say he made LA a competitive team without them necessarily being sort of absolute juggernauts in any way, shape, or form. And obviously Hillier has an an experience, sorry, of working in Toronto already. I believe he was there as an assistant coach a few years back. So he knows that Toronto media presence. He knows the expectations of the fans. He knows the expectation of ownership. And I think that's probably a really important factor to bear in mind with this team because the Toronto job, the Montreal job, those two big Canadian markets, especially, not easy jobs to do. And I largely think that the media outlets are predominantly to blame for that. But if they can just have, a stress-free, no drama, no issues, and just let the players play, then I think they've made a sensible hire. My only concern with Hillier is he does tend to lean towards a very sort of defensive style of hockey, sort of defense first. We're going to win games by conceding less than the other team as opposed to outscoring the other team. That's kind of his coaching philosophy and background, which I don't know if that lends itself massively to the makeup of this Toronto roster. You factor in the fact that you're probably going to throw Gavin McKenna into the mix there next year, and you got Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Nyes for now. Um, Whilst their defensive core is certainly I would say one of the weaker points on their team. So maybe that's just a coach trying to address a weaker part to try and bring it up to speed with the rest of the team. Maybe he's going to play a completely different style of hockey in Toronto than what we've seen him do in previous roles. But that was the only sort of thing stylistically, I suppose, that was a little bit of a very small red flag to me.
I think I've said the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. They needed a bit something different. It's not just a head coach that's changed. Backroom teams are changing. There's a new control structure in Toronto. They can't have a replication of what happened last year. The goaltending's been horrific, for the most part. So now they're at a juncture now where they've managed to get the first overall pick. They're rebooting. Hate that word, retooling. But I think the approach with that head coach, he hasn't had massive success, but that's not to say he can't. Either that or be an easy fall guy again next year. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, we will. We'll, I'll reserve sort of any judgment until we get sort of 20 games into next season. I think that's usually sort of a good marker to see sort of how a coach is implementing their style as such, and it'd be interesting to see what input, if input, he has on sort of any draft selections, trades, anything like that. Moving on then, a couple of extensions to talk about, kind of bundled in, and one of which has come from the Carolina Hurricanes trophy parade, going full Sam Bennett. Nick Delorier signs a 2-year, $875,000 extension with the Carolina Hurricanes. Goes up and signs the contract live on stage, gives it the big rah rah, 2 more fucking years, yeah, for your fourth line grinding forward, sure, whatever. Don't think they needed to necessarily go full fanfare with it, but I'm not gonna be full celebration police or anything. Delorier was a really important part of that team. Came in, I think they got him for like a 7th round pick or something, didn't they? I think from Philly.
Gimme.
Yeah, and he's going to stick around for another couple of years. Probably be his last contract. Obviously, he's in his late 30s now. So yeah, fair play to him. He gets to stick around for another 2 years and try and run it back again.
I do wonder whether he wanted a mill or something, and they said instead of a mill, why don't we do this publicity stunt instead? We might get him a marketing deal or two.
Boost his social media presence. Yeah, because if we shave 125,000 off of that contract, but if he lands some sort of like sponsorship deal with a, I don't know, probably like a sports book or something like that.
Old Spice or something.
Yeah.
He's an ex-Tom Cruise.
Then yeah, but I think that's a decent little piece of business. The other little piece of business, I am vexed by Jason Dickinson, formerly of my Chicago Blackhawks, signs a 5-year contract extension in Edmonton. This is what having Stan Bowman as your GM does to you. I've been there. I've seen it happen. I saw him give, Brent Seabrook when he was, in his early 30s and clearly in the decline. I saw him give him that max term deal. He just has the most bizarre method of thinking. Does Stan Bowman? Do I like? Now, look, don't get me wrong. I love Jason Dickinson as a guy, as a player. I think he was great when he was in Chicago. He really helped a lot of those young guys. He's a really good penalty killing forward. Plays the game the right way, consummate professional, really insightful guy when he speaks to the media as well. He's always someone who's really worth listening to. $4 million is not, isn't breaking the bank, but 5 years? 5 years.
5 years. This deal is horrendous. We talk about winning trades and all judgments. I just know this is gonna mess them up even more. Like they've already got one bad contract in Trent Frederick,
Yep.
who ain't doing jack. Edmonton have got so many problems that Dickinson is not going to solve, and they're just eating up their cap for what? I don't know. It's I'm
Yeah.
mind blowing. Like for me, I would take two Deloriers over Dick. Like well, four Deloriers over one Dickinson. Like
Four
and this
Delorier-sized
is
Dickinsons or one Dickinson-sized Delorier.
Delorier. And
uh,
this isn't really to shit on Dickinson as a player. Like, I agree with what you said. He's a good player. He's okay, but he's not a 5x4 worthy for me on that Edmonton team
no,
who can't afford that.
no, not at all. And
I
this is a
mean,
guy who's completed an 82 game season once in his entire career. Even looking at the last couple of years, uh, made 47 appearances for Chicago and then 17 for Edmonton. So that's what 64 games last season, 59 the year before that. He has been really sort of prone to injuries, especially during the end of his time in Chicago. He was constantly, fighting through something, and when he healed something up, another part went. I just think this is, I'm thrilled for him personally. He gets $20 million guaranteed. Sign on the dotted line. There you go. But for me, this has buyout candidate written all over it. 3 years down the line from now. And I just think it is just insane, an absolutely insane piece of business. Not in a good way from Edmonton, but
let's phrase it a different way, okay? So McDavid took a massive discount to sign for like the 2 years that he's done. And what they've done with the money that they should have paid McDavid, because he's now going to go, um, it is the money's in Frederick and Jason Dickinson.
yeah. And did they not sign Trent Fred? Was it like did they sign him to an 8 year deal? I think they gave him like an 8 year deal at like a reasonable cap hit, but then with like a full no movement clause. They're just an absolutely baffling franchise. Um,
And if you're Conor McDavid, you just sat there thinking, what are we doing? 8 year deal for Trent Frederick on 3.85 mil.
yeah,
He's in year two of it.
yeah, yeah, just insane. So you've got just shy of $8 million there tied up in those two guys for the next 5 years plus. Obviously, for the remaining bits on the Frederick deal. Um, yeah,
Edmonton will be competitive next year. McDavid will go somewhere else, and then there's going to be some dark times ahead for the Oilers, I think, because nobody's going.
100%, 100%. Moving from the extension chat back into the trade chat, we've got a trio of trades. One of which I think is a bit more standout than the other. So do you want to start with the two sort of less significant trades for me, or do you want to start with the biggie?
We'll start with the biggie, and then we can run down with the
Yeah.
two small ones, really.
So the San Jose Sharks get Michael Kesselring from Buffalo in exchange for pick number 20. The Sharks also get pick number 27 back as well. So in essence, Buffalo move up. They swap picks. They move up 7 spots in exchange for Michael Kesselring going back the other way to the Sharks. For the Sharks, I love this deal. I think the difference between picking 27 and 20, I think, is not massive. You get Michael Kesselring back, who again has had a couple of issues with like a couple of injuries, but is a really I really like him as a defenseman. He's someone who I wish Chicago had been all over in terms of adding a bit of sort of veteran presence, but still young enough to fit in with your timeline for like your window of opportunity. So yeah, I really like this trade for San Jose. Um, Obviously for Buffalo, he just wasn't able to, I think through cap issues, if they're wanting to re-sign Alex Tuck, like, maybe just didn't have the room for him there. But they have a fairly stacked defensive core anyway. You think Power, Byram, Darlene, and the rest. So yeah, I just think he maybe just ran out of space there. So he gets to go to a place in San Jose where he'll have plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, he's an RFA, so he does need a new contract. It'd be interesting. Obviously, you're not going to make this move unless you've got an idea of what that's going to cost you. San Jose are a team in desperate need for defensive help. And Kesselring, you've said it, he's had a few issues with either injuries or just getting some decent game time. Not forgetting he played in Arizona before, and then for the first season in Utah as well before moving to the Buffalo Sabres. So he's been moving around a little bit. Hopefully, he can get a decently long contract, a settled place to work and progress, and he can really cement himself in the league because he is 26, so he's not the youngest. I just think like it's going to be now or never for Kesselring, whether it's a bridge contract or what. But this is his final chance. If he doesn't hit it off in San Jose, I'm afraid his career might sort of fizzle out a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, he's just coming off the back of a 2-year sort of 1.4 million bridge deal. Obviously, he was a part of the deal. He was a piece in the Paterka trade that sent Paterka to Utah. I think it was him and Josh Doan who went the other way. So look, he's not a big point scorer, but he does provide sort of a physical element to his defensive play. 6'4", 216 pounds, right shot. Gives them a physical edge and someone to provide some kind of physical cover for a lot of their kind of young stud forwards. So yeah, he is, like you said, he needs that contract. You would imagine that there's been some conversations prior with San Jose about, they wouldn't have made that trade unless they had an idea about what he was looking for. And I think, if I'm Kesselring, I maybe take a little less money for longer term. I think just being able to plant your roots down somewhere and stay put on a team that is on the rise and is going to be, incredibly exciting. He probably is a good, on a competitive team, he's probably an elite third pair guy, probably a decent second pair guy. One of those kind of role playing defensive guys. And good right shot defensemen are not easy to come by. So, again,
He's a sixth round pick as well.
yeah, those guys are available if if your scouting department is on it. You can find little diamonds in the rough in those later
He's a
rounds. But
sixth round pick 8 years ago, and 8 years later, he's getting traded. He's involved in a trade for moving positions in the first round. Like with his background, that there is something in this guy that coaches really do like.
yeah, yeah,
So get rooted, and
yeah,
I think he'll be a great middle. He'll be a great like second line defenseman for San
yeah,
Jose moving forward.
for sure. Um, the Predators obviously have just taken some staff from Colorado, and they've taken some players as well. Ross Colton and goaltender Isaac Posh goes to Colorado in exchange for Magnus Trina, another goalie prospect, and a couple of thirds, 26 and 27 third round picks. I think, again, I think Ross Colton is kind of one of those guys who every championship team needs a couple of Ross Coltons. Guys who can kind of accept and know their role and play with a bit of grit. I think that you know clearly he was liked by management in Colorado because as soon as that management has gone to Nashville, he's been that guy to call up and take over there. I think for Colorado, obviously they lose Colton, but they shed a little bit of cap for when it comes around to re-signing Cale Makar and everything like that. So yeah, it's not. I mean, the goalie prospect swap, I think, is just kind of is what it is. I don't think that really moves the needle much for either team. But yeah, I think it's a steady move. I think for Nashville to make.
It's a better move than the Oilers signing Dickinson
Yeah,
for me.
yeah,
I mean, he's got 1 year, 4 mil left, but he's been a consistent. He plays lots of games. He gets in there with the points. He's a proper grinder. The coach is probably one of the players that coaches just love to have. Um, and it's not the splashy play. Like I say, this is a minor trade. It's for two future third round picks. So like it's not a blockbuster trade in any way. It's fine. Will Colorado miss him? Yeah, I think so.
yeah, yeah. He's a 11 to 12 minutes a night, bottom six, 25 to 40 point guy. Um, so he's had a good bit of kind of success in his career. He's played on Tampa, he's played on Colorado, so carries a good bit of experience there to take to Nashville with him, and he's probably again don't know the guy personally, but I would imagine he is one of those guys who strikes me as a good locker room guy. Um,
Mm.
kind of like a player's player. Someone who kind of everyone likes. Um, the Toronto in the trade market again. So yeah, they've been doing business with Philadelphia. Nathaniel.
Yeah. So again, it's a bit of a meh trade. Um, Toronto has had enough of Joseph Wall, so they send him and Simon Benoit to the Philadelphia Flyers for Samuel Ersson, defenseman Emile Andre, and a 2026 third round pick. Okay.
Yeah.
It's, it's probably
uh,
not going to be worth. I've included it because Wall had a bad year last year. Obviously, he had some time away from the team, and he's come back. And obviously, Toronto finished bottom in the division, so it was worth mentioning for that respect. But I mean, I don't know how much more you want to digest that. I don't think Wall's going to be backing up Vladar at Philadelphia.
I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, I kind of feel for Wall a little bit. Obviously, had some personal issues away from the game, and came back was reasonable but not great. And then they've kind of they've thrown him to the wolves. For kind of a pretty sort of bang average return, really. So, but you know what? It's a change of scenery for him, change of scenery for Sam Ersson. They swap defensemen as well, and then Toronto get a third in there as well. So make of that what you will. Um, any other news, Nathaniel?
Well, there's one bit of news before we go, and I guess it's kind of sad news. Um, your boy Jonathan Toews is retiring again. And I say again, he was never technically retired, but he had a gap year, or gap years, going to find himself for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a year in Winnipeg, but he's called it a day.
He has, and I'd like to kind of spend a bit more time at some point in the future, kind of dissecting Jonathan Toews a little bit. As I'm sure he's but the matter of the facts is this: he is a three-time Stanley Cup winning captain. He is a Selke Trophy winner. He is a 6-time NHL All-Star, I believe. He is a Messier Leadership Award winner. Make of that what you will. He is a Triple Crown gold medal winner with Canada, Olympics, World Cup, World Juniors. He has achieved in his career what kids lie in bed at night dreaming about, when they're getting into the game. And he's gone out there and he's lived it. He took, everything he's had to battle through, the autoimmunity issues over the last 2 years. No one thought he'd ever lace up a pair of skates again. But as soon as it was rumoured that he was maybe going to come back and sign in Winnipeg, a lot of players, a lot of his former teammates in Chicago said if there's anyone who can come back and play, it'd be him. His mentality, his attitude to the game. And he played all 82 games in Winnipeg, which I don't think anyone saw coming. He wasn't the Jonathan Toews of old. He was playing a depth role in the bottom six. But this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer for me. He is his jersey had best be retired in the United Center in Chicago by Christmas at the latest. And yeah, he is someone who I think doesn't maybe get the plaudits because his personality was always lacking a little bit. Obviously carried the kind of Captain Serious moniker around with him for years, and wasn't necessarily always kind of the most entertaining of personalities. But there was a period of time in Chicago where it was him and Sidney Crosby neck and neck of who was the best player in the league. Won a Conn Smythe trophy in one of those Stanley Cup years with Chicago as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm gutted that he's retired, but I was just so happy that he was able to come back and play one more year in his hometown. Every player's got to do it at some point. I'm sure we'll see Patrick Kane in Buffalo. I'm sure that will happen before his career's done. I'm sure, every guy at some point in time has to play for his hometown team. Congratulations, Jonathan Toews, on an amazing career and a happy retirement. I think he'll just go back to India or wherever he was before and continue finding himself.
Before he becomes the next head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. But no.
We'll see.
I'm not going to deep dive too much into that. I think you summed that up perfectly. I think you're right in that he's definitely a player that we can cover off in deeper detail later down the line. So, with that, we're going to head for a quick break. We'll be back very shortly to cover over our predictions and for the awards and the standings from last year.
Christ.
See you shortly. And we are back. Now, this is going to be Matt's least favourite segment of the entire episode, and that includes talking about his boy Toews retiring from the NHL. Because we're going to cover off our predictions for both the standings and the awards and seeing how we've done. So, I think we'll start off in terms of the standings, mate. So, if you remember back, we selected who we think were going to be the top 3 teams in each division in a particular order, the 2 wildcard teams, the conference finals, and then the Stanley Cup. Right. I'm going to start off strong in the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
Where we did get the 3 teams correct. Each of us selected Vegas, Edmonton, and Anaheim, making the playoffs. The difference is you went for Edmonton at the top and Vegas in second place. So you didn't do too badly there.
Yeah, I don't think that's a ludicrous take.
Yeah. So, but I got every single one right. So ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. That you
And
know what
then we have
that is about as good as it gets for me in all of these predictions. Carry on.
I can't believe you're like the knowledgeable one with hockey, and there's me just banging out picks. Anyway, we go into the Central Division now. The Winnipeg Jets completely shafting us here because we both had them in our
Yeah.
lineups. So I had the Avalanche, the Jets, and then the Wild in third. Obviously, the Avalanche came first, and the Wild came third. You had the Jets top in the division
Hmm.
with the Avs in second and the Dallas Stars in third. So you got two of the picks right, but not in the right positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those listening, obviously the Avalanche came first, the Stars came second, and the Wild came third.
Yeah. I then took, I mean, we both took St. Louis in finishing in one of those wildcard spots, which again just shafted us silly. But I took the Wild in a wildcard spot. You took the Stars in a wildcard spot. So, you know, we both had the top four kind of aligned just in different orders. And then obviously, yeah, just Winnipeg came and just absolutely pissed on everyone's bonfire. The conference
So the team
finals,
who
though,
actually made it was the Kings, wasn't it? It was the Kings over the Blues, which
it,
falls
it,
in terms of my early bet in the season.
yeah, it was. Honestly, you are an oracle. Don't ask me for like, you know, crypto or stock market advice. Jeez, you'll lose all your money. I went with the Oilers and the Jets in the conference final. Could not have been more wrong. You went with the Colorado Avalanche against the Vegas Golden Knights, and guess what? That's exactly what happened. So, yeah, good going, Nathaniel. The Western Conference was a lot of very good predictions. Um, the Eastern Conference, then, not quite as well predicted, but you've still predicted it pretty well. Uh, I had the Maple Leafs, Panthers, and Lightning in that order in the Atlantic Division. You had the Lightning, the Maple Leafs, and the Panthers. So same three teams, different order. How wrong were we? Obviously, the
Oh
Lightning,
dear.
the Lightning is the only one that we got there. We put a load of stock into the Maple Leafs. What a stupid decision that was. And then the Panthers as well, which again I don't think we were daft for thinking that the Panthers would be up there. I don't think anyone predicted they would have the season that they had. I don't know if we made
I think
these
this was
predictions.
pre-Barkov as well.
I was
Yeah.
just about to say, did we make these predictions before
Mm.
the Barkov injury? Because I definitely think I wouldn't have picked them to finish second in the Atlantic if Barkov had been fit.
I think this was pre-Barkov.
Yeah. And then we picked the same three teams, again in different orders, in the Metro as well. We both picked the Carolina Hurricanes to win the division. We were correct. We then went with the Devils and the Rangers, which again, absolute fluff of a pick. I went with the Devils finishing second and the Rangers third. You went with the Rangers finishing second and the Devils third. I think this is maybe one of the only predictions where I come off ever so slightly better, albeit fractionally. But yeah, New Jersey and the Rangers there, just absolutely, absolutely not. And then we both had the Canadians finishing in a wildcard spot, which they did better than that. We both had the Blue Jackets finishing in a wildcard spot, which they did not do. Uh,
Buffalo, who'd have thought it?
yeah,
Buffalo came up.
right. I would have thought Buffalo would have been. I mean, we all thought McKenna was due in Buffalo, certainly at the start of the season. How wrong we were, unless he falls to the 27th overall pick, which I don't see, or 20th overall pick, sorry, which I don't see happening. Um, and then for the conference finals, I had the Panthers against the Hurricanes. I got one right. You had the Hurricanes against the Canadians. You predicted both conference finals to a T. Um, yeah,
Oh dear.
I-
That's kudos, that.
yeah, that is. I mean,
That is.
fair play. That is an unbelievable prediction. Um, and then I had the Jets beating the Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final, which obviously did not happen. You had the Avalanche beating the Hurricanes, which you we were close. We were close.
I'm still hammering it, and I should just rest on my laurels. I did great.
Yeah, you did.
But the fact that Vegas beat Colorado is, I just hate Vegas because I feel like Avalanche should have won that matchup.
Yeah,
Avalanche should have won that matchup. And then, I mean, who would have known the Avalanche might have beaten the Hurricanes
mate. Yeah,
in the Stanley Cup final? We
we'll
don't
never
know.
know. We'll never know.
But I mean, I would have put it on a t-shirt. I would have got it tattooed on my body had I predicted Avalanche over the Hurricanes and got that right as well. Forgot the conference finals and the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, yeah. Got to tat it right on your lower back.
Yep. I am a smug bar steward on
Yes,
my
you
back.
certainly are. Uh, and then our awards predictions. Little spoiler alert, doesn't get much better for me throughout any of this. Starting off with the Hart Trophy, we both picked Nathan McKinnon, as a candidate for that. You also kind of threw Mitch Marner in there as a bit of a wild card. I had Connor McDavid and decided to swap him out for Connor Bedard because at the time that I made that swap, look, I know I'm going to get absolutely shat on for this. Look, at the time that I made that switch, the way that Connor Bedard was playing was absolutely unbelievable. About 3 weeks later, he got injured, and the rest is history. Obviously, neither of us were correct there because the Hart Trophy went to Nikita Kucherov. With McDavid finishing second and McKinnon finishing third, so we each grab a third place consolation point there. Um,
Well, I'll jump in here is because I didn't do it for the standings. Don't know why I didn't, but I've created a scoring system in order for us to track how our predictions work. Now, I have no idea if you've been able to decipher
I think
my
I have.
notes as to what.
I
So,
oh wait, mm, go on.
so we each picked our lead candidate and then a wild card spot. So, if your wild card pick won, you get 10 points.
Right.
If your lead pick finishes third in the voting tracks, like the voting standings, you get 1 point. Finish second, you get 3 points, and if they won, you get 5 points.
Okay.
So let's say if Connor Bedard, in what world, was going to win the Hart Trophy, he would have bagged you 10 points.
Yeah. Yeah, but he didn't.
It's, so we both got a point from the Hart because of McKinnon finishing in third. I didn't realise how close McDavid was to Kucherov in the voting for that.
Very,
So
very close. Very close. We did, however, both score 5 points in this scoring system for the Art Ross Trophy. We both predicted Connor McDavid to score the most points in the league, and we were correct. You took Mitch Marner again as your kind of wild card pick there, presumably tied into if he wins the Art Ross Trophy, he will probably win the Hart Trophy. Which
yeah,
again, sensible. I went with Kirill Kaprizov because I thought, he's coming off of this massive contract. Of course, he's going to go out there and show the league why he's worth it. And he didn't. Um, yeah, McDavid finished the year on 138 points, Kucherov on 130, McKinnon on 127. So we each take 5 points there. The Rocket Richard, Nathaniel.
the Rocket Richard for the most goals. Now, another thing there, you touched on it with Connor Bedard that you put him in place of McDavid. So we had a mid-season point where we allowed ourselves 3 changes each based on how the season was going for our predictions. Now, this is where I've come in clutch because I originally had Mikko Rantanen as my lead candidate and Mitch Marner again as my wild card. But halfway through the season, I switched out Rantanen for Nathan McKinnon, who scored the most goals with 53. You had Austin Matthews as your lead candidate, and you did
Yeah.
have Ovechkin. You switched him out for Sidney Crosby.
Yep. Yep. Stand
Okay.
by it. He was having a great. He was. The thing is, he was scoring a load of goals at the time. Yeah. Now it looks like a ridiculous decision, but he was having a great goal scoring year at the time. So that's another 5 points for you. Obviously, McKinnon finishing on 53, Caulfield on 51, McDavid on 48. So another 5 points for Nathaniel there. My God. And then we get to the Selke Trophy, where I picked Sam Reinhart and Anze Kopitar. I went big on the vets this year. You had Sebastian Aho as your first pick, and then made a very smart decision to switch him out for Nick Suzuki, which is good because he went and won it by an absolute fucking landslide. He got 1,726 points. Sorelli finished in second with 467. You then also had Nico Hischier as your second pick, which, you know, again, I think that was a decent pick at the time. But yeah, Suzuki, Sorelli, Nelson were your three finalists. Suzuki won by an absolute country mile. And then we move into the Norris.
Swiftly, Suzuki swiftly moving on. To your favourite award, the Norris for the best offensive defenseman.
Well.
Well. So you started out with Quinn Hughes, and this was back when he played for Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And followed up by Zach Werenski.
Yep.
And I went for Cale Makar, and then with the backup of Zach Werenski. Now, this is where you get 2/3 of your points here, Matt. because Werenski won the award quite comfortably as well. From our wildcard spots, so we both get 10 points. These points are lovely, aren't they?
For you, they
get 10 points. Yeah. And then, because Makar also was listed second, I get 3 points. So, a very good award for me, this one.
Yeah, you did well, mate. Yeah, you did really good.
Quinn Hughes didn't even get onto third spot, which for me, I think when they announced it and we had a quick chat about it, that Darlene made it to the finalists over Quinn Hughes, and I was a bit, come on. Darlene wasn't that good in comparison to Quinn Hughes. He did all right in Vancouver, got traded to Minnesota, and is like more than a point per game.
Yeah. I think if he'd spent the whole season in Minnesota, it'd have been a different story. I might run it back with Quinn Hughes next year.
We'll see about that. So,
the Calder Trophy.
the Vezina first, mate.
Oh, Vezina first, sorry.
Yeah,
skipping past that, God.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty skippable, really.
Yeah, we both scored no points. I had Connor Hellebuck and Jay Cottinger. What I thought was a really sensible pairing. You had Philip Gustafsson and Sergei Bobrovsky. Again, I didn't really have too many qualms with that. Neither of our four players finished in the top three. It was Vasilevsky taking the trophy, Sorokin, Swayman. So no points scored for either of us there.
I do think Sorokin should have won that.
I also think Sorokin should have won that, and I'm surprised that Vasilevsky won it by the landslide that he did. I think I would personally have. I thought Sorokin was more deserving, but here we are. Right, the Calder Trophy then. I went with Ivan Demidov, which I think you've absolutely skimmed me off some points here.
I have.
Because
change that. You need 3 points for that.
Get in. You had Ivan Demidov. I had Ivan Demidov. I had Sam Rinzel prior to that. I was really high on the fact that Sam Rinzel was maybe an outside shout for the Calder Trophy. I ended up swapping him for Jesper Wallstedt because of the way he was playing at the time. He was absolutely unbelievable. And I think Wallstedt maybe finished, fifth maybe in the final votings. You had Zane Parekh. Made another really calculated switch for Matthew Schaefer, who, again, won by an absolute country mile. You also had Sam Rinzel as your outside pick, so I'm glad I wasn't alone in that. But yeah, Schaefer took the Calder at a landslide. Demidov in second, and Beckett Seneca of the Anaheim Ducks finishing third there. The final award was for the Jack Adams. I went with Martin St. Louis of the Montreal Canadiens. You went with Jared Bednar of the Colorado Avalanche. And again, we scored no points here because John Cooper won it, followed by Lindy Ruff and Dan Muse in Pittsburgh, finishing third there in the.
This award baffles me. How was St. Louis or Bednar? Like, I don't know, Colorado dominated the regular season. What Martin St. Louis has done with Montreal this year has been incredible. The turnaround that team's had. And you got Cooper, who is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Very solid year in Tampa, but not to really scream and shout about. Ruff should be there for what he's done in Buffalo this year.
Mm-hmm.
But Muse in Pittsburgh, yeah, okay. Looking at it, we thought they were going to go into a rebuild and be horrendous, and they did really well.
I think
They
Muse
got
should
good
have won
players.
it personally. I
You
think
think?
from what was expected of Pittsburgh compared to what they did, I think that what he got out of that team was nothing short of incredible. Obviously, it didn't work out for them in the playoffs, but yeah, I think he had an outstanding year. Which means then in the point scoring system that Nathaniel has so generously created, I got absolutely washed.
I did
34.
put you extra 3 points in there, by the way.
Thank you very much. So it makes it slightly less embarrassing. 34 to 19. So at least you didn't over double my score. So I'll take that.
Yeah,
But we
extra
are
three
going to
points I give, yeah.
we'll run these predictions back last year. I always like the outside pick. I think that's my problem. I like the high odds pick, and it's a learning curve. Next year, I think I'm just going to go with the most straightforward options. Yeah, well done, mate. You are certainly a better predictor of future hockey events than I am.
This year,
And
anyway.
so, yeah, certainly for now. And we'll take another quick break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into my wheelhouse, into my territory. We are going to be doing our penalty box perspective 2026 mock draft. So stick with us, and we'll be back shortly.
Right, and we are back, as Matt said, in his wheelhouse, looking at all these prospects. Now, I've come off a very good segment where I'm very good at predicting NHL events. I have not watched a single minute of junior hockey this year. I might have seen some few highlight reels on social media and Reddit and things, but other than some names I recognise from the Olympics and the big news guys, I'm already holding up my white flag saying, I don't know
Well,
what I'm talking about here.
don't I don't do yourself down too much, because as we're going to get into in a moment, our first four picks of the top four of this draft are identical in every single way. So certainly at the top of the draft, I think you've done very well. Starting with the first overall pick, it goes to Toronto. I mean, I don't think there's really too much to unpack here. It's going to be Gavin McKenna, isn't it? They can't fuck this up.
They probably will, but they're not going to.
I
No,
think
this is
I would say
McKenna.
it's 99% sure that they take Gavin McKenna. I'm as close to 100% as I possibly can be. But yeah, I think the conversations have already been had. I think the jersey's already been printed. Number 72 will be arriving in Toronto from Penn State. Moving into the second overall pick, then. Now, this pick is currently occupied by San Jose, but we both have the exact same transaction taking place.
Oh,
Yeah, when I
we have
said
not talked about this before recording this.
we have not spoken about this at all. Now we both have the Chicago Blackhawks trading up to the number 2 spot with San Jose, which involves San Jose going to number 4. Now, in my mind, I had Chicago trading the number 4 pick, the better of either Edmonton or Florida's picks next year, as well as a 3rd round pick going there as well. Maybe a little bit of an overpayment, but again, from everything I've read, the Chicago Blackhawks really, really like Ivar Stenberg from Frölunda in Sweden. You know, a do-it-all forward. I think has some, you know, the NHL comp. I think is Mitch Marner, which would be, you know, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, proper 200-foot player, can do it all, create, score. Also not bad defensively as well. So yeah, I had Chicago trading up with San Jose to take Ivar Stenberg.
Yeah. And for me, I didn't really go off the Chicago viewpoint of this. I went more for the San Jose. And I don't think San Jose wants to necessarily take an attacker this year. They need defensive prospects. Chicago have kind of got an even mix between decent forward players and decent defensemen, like coming up. Arguably, they could probably do more with defense, but I think Chicago are a bit less fussy and rather take the best overall player. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
San Jose are going after defense. For me, there's no point in them taking one at number 2 because they'll always find teams to trade back down and then pick the defenseman that they want. Chicago win that out, and therefore they go and take Stenberg. San Jose drop to 4th in order to eye up their defenseman. I'm not going
Yeah,
to say who that defenseman is, but that's where my head was at when I was looking at this. In terms of
I
compensation, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think the again I was seeing all the discourse the other day saying, oh, you know, Michael Kesselring traded to the San Jose Sharks. It means they're going to take Stenberg at 2 because they've already got a defenseman. No, I'm sorry. I like Michael Kesselring, as we've said, tidy little player, but trading for Michael Kesselring does not negate the need to draft a top defensive prospect in this draft. Moving into the 3rd overall pick, then, that is currently occupied by the worst team in the NHL last year by an absolute country mile. And I had the Vancouver Canucks taking Caleb Malhotra from the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL for numerous reasons. And here's why. This is a team in a rebuild. You rebuild your team. The first thing you do is you draft your center of the future. Caleb Malhotra is the best center in this class. Again, he's a guy who can do it all. Speaking of, you know, Jonathan Toews and Alexander Barkov, he has said are the 2 guys who he has modelled his career, modelled his style of play off of the most. There's also obviously the massive factor that Manny Malhotra is currently the coach in Vancouver. Now, I don't think that aspect necessarily plays as big of a role as everyone thinks, because, again, everything that I've read about both Caleb and Manny Malhotra is that there would be zero preferential treatment, and if anything, he would push him harder than anyone on that roster, and there wouldn't be anything given. Malhotra probably. I mean, it's important to note that I think after McKenna and Stenberg, I don't see any of these guys jumping straight into the NHL this year, unless it's at the end of the season for a handful of games once their respective seasons are done. So everyone from here on out, I think, goes back to their respective colleges, junior teams, etc. But yeah, you, Nathaniel, I believe, also had Mr. Malhotra at number 3.
Yeah. I think if San Jose picks defense at 2, Vancouver will pick Stenberg. But Stenberg's off the board. So they're going, I guess, best player available. Is that Malhotra? I don't know. But I just think the familial link there, it just makes it easier to pick it there. It's a bit of a scapegoat pick.
Yeah. and he is committed to Boston University next year, so he will be going to the NCAA to continue his development. So the number 4 pick, now owned by San Jose. Like you said, they need a defenseman. I think they have a left-handed defenseman they really like in Sam Dickinson. I also like Sam Dickinson. I think he's a very good young prospect. I had them taking Chase Reed from the Sioux Greyhounds. Right shot defenseman. Arguably the best defenseman in this class. I know that's kind of up for debate. Various draft analysts have certain people, depending on left or right. But I think Chase Reed is the best right-handed defenseman in this class.
Yeah, it's surprising to me because there's a couple of other defenders I've heard of more for different reasons, but I do think the consensus pick is that Reed is probably the best defenseman. It's going to be the first defenseman that goes off the board. San Jose, as I said before, needs defensemen, so rather boringly, we've got the exact same top 4 picks, including the same trade.
Yeah. Chase Reed committed to Michigan State University next season. Again, making the transition from the CHL to the NCAA. Now, here's where things change up a little bit, because I don't think we have any picks from here that match. So, Nathaniel, I'll let you lead off with your 5th overall pick.
Yeah. Now, the 5th overall pick is held by the New York Rangers. And I was sat looking at the boards that are being released, and I'm reading his player profile and things like that, but I just think the Rangers are going to make a stupid decision here. Now, who knows what of these players are going to be the next superstar and who isn't. But I think the Rangers go wonky here, and they're going to pick the centre/right wing from Djurgården's Viggo Bjork.
I don't dislike that at all. I think if it wasn't for the fact that Viggo Bjork was 5'9", 5'10", he would be being talked about in the top 3 of this draft. He is probably one of the players that fluctuates the most in terms of people's draft rankings. Some people have him ranked as high as 2 or 3. Some people have him down in like 10. I have the Rangers taking the left-handed defenseman Carson Carrolls. Big, physical. He is going to play at the University of North Dakota next year, alongside one of the other key defensive prospects in this draft. I see them taking a defenseman. I think they've got quite a lot of forward prospects at the moment, but I think they are looking a little bit light on the back end, and I think Carrolls is someone who will do that for them.
I think that's a sensible choice. I just don't think they will do that. They want their Panarin, they want their Zibanejad.
Yeah, I mean, I think either way, I think whichever direction they go, I think either of those picks, I think, would be absolutely fine at number 5. I don't think either of those is a reach at all. But moving into 6 then, with the Calgary Flames, Nathaniel, who do you have for the Flames taking at 6?
I went for who Rangers should have taken, is Carson Carrolls.
Nice. Yeah, for those for those exact reasons. Obviously they've got he seems like the kind of guy who would be the perfect folly for Zane Parekh being a right shot offense first kind of guy, pairing with someone a bit more physical down the line. I like that. I went similar for the exact same reason, but I went with Albert Smits. The big Latvian, one of my favourite players in this draft, because I think as an 18-year-old, or he just has such a wealth of experience, playing again in a league amongst men already, represented Latvia at the World Juniors, represented Latvia at the Olympic Games. So already has a wealth of experience. And of those first three defensemen, Reed, Carrolls, and Smits, I actually think that Smits will be the first to play NHL hockey amongst those. I think he's a little more, whilst I think the ceiling is maybe not as high as those two, I think he is someone who will be ready for the NHL before those two will be.
Yeah, I agree in every way, shape, or form. And I think he is probably the better foil for Prek than Carroll's is in the future. Um, the only reason why I didn't put Smits for the Flames is because I guess I needed to reconfirm our ongoing trope about how boring the Seattle Kraken are, and that in their pick they take the defensive defenseman, no nonsense, no headline making player in Smith.
Yeah, again, that it would be a very Seattle-y move. I think Seattle need they need a guy who's going to be a bums out of seats kind of guy, and I think at this point in my mock draft he's still available. I think the Seattle Kraken take Viggo Bjork. I think the kind of electric forward, can go there and be hopefully their kind of top line forward, and I think he would be a great pick for Seattle if he's still there.
Yeah.
So
So
the eighth overall pick then sits wildly with the Winnipeg Jets, my Stanley Cup prediction winner, and yet they're picking eighth overall in the draft. So Nathaniel, who do you have the Jets taking at number 8?
again, I don't necessarily think he's probably the eighth best player in this draft, but every draft you have throws some different names out there that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Now, Oscar Hemming, the winger from Boston College, I don't know why. I haven't read anything. I don't really know the ins and outs, but plucked out of my brain is that the Winnipeg Jets love this player, so that's why they're picking him.
Love it. Love it. And you know what? You'll have predicted absolutely right, because you tend to do with most things. I have the Winnipeg Jets taking Keaton Verhoff, the right shot defenseman, also of the University of North Dakota. Someone whose draft stock has fallen in the last couple of months for reasons I'm not particularly sure why. Less, I think, Verhoff's stock has fallen more than other guys' stock has risen. You think Malhotra, Bjork especially, Carson Carrolls, but I think that Verhoff is, a very, very high ceiling prospect, but maybe just a little bit raw at the moment. He's 6'4", again, proper 200-foot guy. And I just think for the Winnipeg Jets moving forward, I think they're quite set in a lot of the forwards that they have. But I think that what they don't have at the moment is a strong sort of defensive prospect. So I had them taking Keaton Verhoff at number 8.
Interesting. I do like Verhoff a lot. He's probably the first defenseman I heard of, however long ago, when looking at future prospects and stuff like that.
Mm.
So he hasn't dropped that far. But yeah,
No, I mean,
I
he
still think he's
was.
going to be a good player.
Yeah, he's kind of gone from being almost like the consensus number 2 overall pick to kind of falling in that sort of 6 to 10 range. So not a dramatic fall, but certainly not, I think, where he thought he would have been at this time. But the ninth overall pick, Nathaniel, obviously now this is where mine has changed a little bit. That pick now belongs to the Ottawa Senators. So who do you have the Sens taking at number 9?
Yeah, again, we've had to pivot a little bit. Um, I guess it's a reactionary selection based off of the player they've just traded away. But I think they go centre. Um, I forgot what his first name is now, but the lad's called Lawrence.
Tin and
Um,
Lawrence.
yes, him.
Yeah, and again, Lawrence is another centre. Someone who, again, is kind of touted in that sort of 8 to 12 kind of range. For the Senators to take another centre, I don't dislike that at all. I have gone with for me my favourite player outside of the top four, and I've got the Senators taking Ethan Belchets. Belchets is an absolute monster. In a draft class full of some slightly smaller guys, he is 6'5". He is 229 pounds. Playing this
A
year.
big boy.
Yeah, oh yeah, he is committed to Michigan State University next year, and yeah, coming off of a good year with, I want to say it was the Windsor Spitfires. So 59 points in 57 games. So not like the most bombastic of point producers, but plays with a physicality that I think the Senators will want to replace, having lost Brady Tkachuk. So kind of in like a 1-for-1 type thing. Now Belchets for me, very similar to Porter Martone from last year's draft. I think I mentioned in my draft rankings I did a few weeks ago. Big guy, big body, but still plays with an element of flair, and he can play. He's not just a lump. He's quite silky. But the draft combine was hilarious. You had all these kind of 180-pound, kind of 5'10" guys showing up, and then you had Belchet show up 6'5", absolutely jacked, the full tattoo sleeve. Just looking like an absolute monster out there, a men amongst boys, so to speak. But yeah, I really like
What are they feeding this
Belchet.
guy?
Yeah, I don't know what they're feeding him in the CHL, but yeah, he is my pick to go to the Senators.
Nice. So, a 10th overall pick is the Nashville Predators, and this is where Keaton Verhoff falls for me. Um, I just think, and I think this is probably going to be the best value pick, I guess, in the whole draft. Maybe out of sort of the Stenberg McKenna. I think Verhoff is going to be is just a great like defenseman. I think he's going to have a very solid career, and Predators is going to be sort of, yeah, it's just great. I think he's going to have a great career in Nashville.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, if Verhoff falls to 10, I think you're absolutely right. I think that ends up being one of the best value picks. If he falls that far, Nashville will be rubbing their hands together, with the player that they, might well have potentially drafted. I also have the Predators taking a defenseman at number 10. Again, I feel like it's an area where they maybe don't have the amount of prospects that they would like. And I have them taking to be committed to the University of Denver. I have them taking the right shot defenseman Daxon Rudolph, arguably one of the better names within this draft. Doesn't quite touch Roger McQueen from last year's draft, but Daxon Rudolph's pretty close. Right shot, 6'3", 205 pounds, from Alberta, Canada. Played this year with the Prince Albert Raiders. Lol. Sorry, just having a Prince Albert team just absolutely tickles me. 78 points in 68 games, and then 27 points in 19 games in the playoffs as well. So productive, high-scoring defenseman, 28 goals amongst those 78 points as well. So someone, again, who, will go to the NCAA to continue his development, which is a really, really interesting element, I think, to a lot of these, is you're seeing a lot of guys make that transition out of their draft years to go from the CHL to the NCAA. It's a lighter game schedule. They get to spend more time in the gym. They get to develop physically as well as in like a hockey sense. And when it's a very nice middle ground is the NCAA between the CHL and the NHL, because those teams still have they'll have a third pair senior defenseman who's like 28 years old or something. A lot of these teams do have like mature students playing further down the lineup. So it's a good opportunity for them to get some experience against some men before they come up. So yeah, I see Rudolph going to the Predators. So that's our top 10. We've got. I think we are quite well aligned in our thought processes in terms of what teams need and what's available. I think you are more aligned in your prospect knowledge than you think.
Yeah. What I find is tricky with the NHL and drafting is that we see, this San Jose need defensemen because their defense is bad. But these players may not be playing for at least a couple of years. So you kind of have to be thinking more forward than you would normally have to. For example, the NFL, which is another league I follow exclusively, is you draft for your immediate need.
Yeah, you draft for what you
So
need
it's like
right now.
right now, whereas not like thinking forward to how your contracts are and stuff. So it's a lot more of a chess game. You're not necessarily going to see all these players in the league next year, so it makes it a bit tricky.
Yeah,
But
agreed. Just before we wrap up, my kind of like my wild card pair, really interesting to keep an eye on the Ruck brothers, Liam and Marcus Ruck, both playing for the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL, the former home of Gavin McKenna. Liam Ruck this year, 68 games played, 104 points. Marcus Ruck this year, 68 games played, 108 points. Identical twins. The natural comparison that they receive is that they are, the next Sedins. I would love a scenario where both Rucks end up on on the same team. I think that would be.
so it's Blues the 11th and 15th picks.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly. If they can, currently according to Craig Button of TSN, who's a guy sort of well entrenched in the prospect field, he has Liam Ruck as his 10th ranked overall prospect. He has Marcus Ruck at 16. So yeah, potentially the St. Louis, I think, is prime candidate for the pair of those. And I think if there's any way that you can get them together, then yeah, I think that's a move you've got to do.
Come on, that's what I get your version of the brothers.
Yeah, they got it. But that brings to a close a very action-packed episode of the Penalty Box Perspective. We've had an awful lot to unpack there. Loads of news, loads of trades, Matt's horrible predictions, Nathaniel's fantastic predictions, and a little bit of draft talk. We are 4 days out. We've got another episode releasing before the draft. We've got a guest coming back with us, which will be very exciting. So I'm looking forward to covering that off with them. Nathaniel, anything else from yourself before we wrap up?
No, just looking forward to the draft now.
Yeah, you and me both, mate. You and me both. Right, guys, as always, you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can find us also on TikTok at Penalty Box Perspective. You can get in touch with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts or feelings on the show, or if you just want to shoot us an email to say hi. You can watch the podcast in video format on both Spotify and also our YouTube channel on the Penalty Box Perspective on YouTube. Please go and drop us a subscription and a like there. It's free, costs you nothing, and it helps me and Nathaniel a bunch. If you also want to drop us a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, again, as well, that helps us massively. Really, as we move towards season 2 of the Penalty Box Perspective, we've got some, nice, exciting changes, some nice, exciting things to come. I'm really excited. I know you are, Nathaniel, and we just want to bring as best content to you as we can. So as always, guys, thanks for being with us. We will see you on the next one, and take it easy. Thanks.
You didn't even ask me to do it this time.
No, I didn't. But we got the drum roll.